will never, ever, and I'm talking now to poor white people too in the US, you will never, ever sit on the 0.1% table. You will die because of extreme labor. So your body's just going to stop functioning. That's what's going to happen. You will keep on sponsoring wars and coup d'etats all over the world. And you, most of the time, will starve, will be drowned in debt because you will never achieve. You're just going to give them, you're just going to finance their richness, their,
Yeah. So this is why having class consciousness is so important. And what you guys were bringing up, it was such a great point when you guys brought up the 0.1%. I know Assal, Karim, and Josanna just referred to that as well. And I was on the Vanguard, and we was having the conversation about Hassan, and I saw Destiny was like criticizing him because he's a millionaire. There's a lot of criticisms that you can have of someone who is more like class loyal and defending politicians all the time. But I don't think attacking people because they're millionaires is one. I was playing this on the Vanguard because you guys got to understand the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire. Like that is a vast sum. And I was pulling this up because I love these examples. I was trying to find the right video that I showed on my show before, but I can't find it. But this from Shower Thoughts. The difference between a millionaire and a billionaire is so vast that 1 million seconds ago was the start of last week. 1 billion seconds ago was 1989. That's the difference between someone who's a millionaire versus a billionaire. So why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because even if you are doing well, if you're of the white suburbanite class, and let's say you have a great career, great investments, you're still a millionaire, you still should be on board with eating the top 0.1%. Period. Because Jeff Bezos and the wealth that these people have, like the Elon Musk, the billionaire capitalists, oil tycoons, the wealth that they have and the wealth that they are extracting from our community is only hurting you. And this is the idea of progressive economics that we as leftists have to explain to people who was convinced to vote against their own interests under the guise of the culture war. And that is exactly what you guys laid out. This is what Bolsonaro is really great at doing. This is what Donald Trump is great at doing. Hell, even the Democratic Party is great at doing this now, where they use the culture war as a way, and this is very prevalent on the right wing, especially in America, where they use the culture war as a way to get poor white people to vote against their interests, like Josanna was mentioning earlier, because they're like, oh, I can be rich, it's not fair that you guys want to eat the rich. Like, bro, even if you're a millionaire, you should want proper allocation of resources, because the wealth that Jeff Bezos has stolen, the surplus value that he's stolen from the Amazon workers, that could be going to your community, that could be going to your business. So let's say even if you are a successful small business owner, right? If we actually had a proper allocation of wealth where the Amazon workers should be making their true value, which I think if you look at how successful and how wealthy Amazon is, you try their workers making $500,000, then people should be millionaires if you had a proper allocation of wealth. Now, those people with that amount of wealth will invest into your community. Those people will pay taxes, pay property taxes. They will go and visit and boost you up. So everyone wins in this system, even if you're doing well. The white suburbanites, even if you're doing well, we will benefit as a society by eating the rich. This is shown in study after study. If you look at how progressive policy will improve society, like the UBI, Medicare for all, these things will actually boost the economy, because it's a basic progressive economic approach that I was explaining to you guys. Like Medicare for all boosts the economy because you have people not spending a ton of money on healthcare. So this is common sense, and this is such an important point. And I noticed how like the 25 to 30% of Americans. What I mean by these are kind of like the unreachables. Like if you look at the policies of the most popular programs, Medicare for all is supported by 70% of American people, and in the drug war, supported by 80% of American people. Okay, who are these 20%? This 20% of the people I'm talking about right now. These people don't care. These people don't care if Medicare for all saves money. They don't care if we had a wealth tax and if you had a wealth tax and you had these business people they'd be less likely to take that wealth home if they know all that money is going to be taxed. So if you have a wealth tax, they will actually trickle that down into their company, into their workers. So this benefits everybody. You explain that to conservatives and some of these people, that 20% I'm talking about, they don't care. They rather pay more. And I think, and this is my personal take, and this kind of ties into Karim. I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this as well. I honestly think this is kind of tied into racism as well. Like I do a lot of class analysis. I also do race analysis, and I think there's a lot of white Southern races that rather pay more for healthcare because they okay with socialism for the rich. Like you don't see none of these rednecks and these Southern people complain about the corporate bailouts and the giant corporate foundations getting a ton of taxpayer money. They don't care about that. They care about any program that may benefit the Black community, that may benefit the Latino community. So they rather not have healthcare if we don't have healthcare. And I've seen this all the time because these same people, they okay with their Social Security. They in Missouri, they may even vote for a Medicare expansion for themselves. But at the end of the day, they don't want anything that will actually impact the communities they deem lesser. Because if they deem you as a lesser, they want you to suffer. So that's that 20 to 25%. And everyone else, like the people that are always trying to flip the independence, you can get them to realize that we can be class conscious by making a difference between that millionaire and billionaire and the destruction that the billionaire class actually had, both in the capitalism in the United States and the wealth inequality in Brazil and across the worldwide. So I'm gonna pass it to you guys. Anyone have anything to add to that? And we're gonna get to China here very quickly, but I'll pass it to the panels.
I think Assal wants to say.
Go ahead, so I'll pass it to you.
I was just going to say, I'm sort of glad you brought up the Hassan controversy over his house, and the reason is because I think, I said earlier that there's polling in the U.S. that shows that Americans believe that there is an issue, right? Like that wealth inequality is an issue and that wealth should be distributed differently, but they are unaware of just how bad the problem is. Now, and in those polls, when they ask Americans how wealth should be distributed, it's never a straight line, right? So Americans don't have this idea that everyone should have the exact same thing. They do believe in the idea of a certain distribution of wealth. But the problem is the total misperception of what that distribution is. And to your point, when you compare a billionaire and a millionaire, it's like we're not even wrapping our minds around what we mean by wealth. Like Hassan buying a house, not the issue. That's not what's stopping me from getting Medicare or Medicare for all or any of these systems put in place. And the fact that, I think there's something that I wanted to bring up. I think sometimes there's a misperception on the left where the idea is not to fetishize being in poverty. The entire idea is to pull people out of poverty. We don't want people in poverty. We want people to be able to afford a standard of living that everyone has. Create a standard of living where people have healthcare, they have education, they have somewhere to live, they have access to food and medicines. Those are just basic standards of living. Saying that everyone should have that doesn't mean that you can't have some, some people with a little more wealth or some people with a little less wealth. There is a misperception that we have to go to either extreme in these polls. And what's funny is we don't realize how extreme we are living in the other end. We live in an extreme, and that is wealth inequality. So when we talk about distributing it, it's not about going to the polar opposite extreme, right? It's just about saying we live in a disturbingly unhealthy society, and we need to revisit this. And, you give examples from countries that have more hybrid systems, that have social welfare programs, but they're still mostly capitalist. And those are the Scandinavian countries that we just talk about. But what about the US as the example, right? At the turn of the century, when we were going into the 20th century, there was something called the progressive movement. And part of that was because the United States was an oligarchy, right? The government had no control over anything. Companies had control over everything. So what did we do? We said that monopolies are illegal. There was trust busting. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt was known as the trust buster or something like that, something to that effect, because he broke apart these banks. We put, FDR, when you talk about that system, you talk about people with wealth being taxed at massively high rates. That didn't mean that they didn't have any more wealth. But when you have billions of dollars, it doesn't really matter how much we tax you. You're still going to have way more money than everybody else. So the issue, again, is in understanding what is meant when we talk about distributing wealth. It doesn't mean take all of the money away and now go give it to everybody in that sense. It means take our own money, right? This is the most frustrating part of it, is how often not only is there a wealth distribution problem, but there's what the government does with our money. So now you're taking my money, but you refuse to spend it on me. Instead, you're spending it on more nuclear weapons or trillions of dollars of wars that have no positive consequence anywhere in the world, including in the United States. So it's a double issue of how we are taxing people and what we do once we tax people. We have tons of tax revenue that we take from ordinary working class Americans. But asking that money to be used on those same people for some reason draws the ire of the wealthy classes. And that's another problem that we have to be able to discuss.
Yeah, and I just wanted to follow up on a point you brought up at the beginning there about ignorance, essentially, like what people don't know. There's a study from, I think, like 5 years ago that asked people what they thought the level of income inequality was in the US, and what they thought it was more equal than Sweden is now. That's what they thought the reality was. And then they asked them, what would be the ideal distribution? And they picked something that's more equal than any society on earth. So the problem is ignorance. And this actually ties into the entire conversation we've been having, because, you know, I've talked to working class Brazilians, melanated as well, who are Bolsonaro supporters. And we have to remember, like, you know, we saw polling before that last election. It was like, if Lula was running, he would have run away with it. But when he wasn't running, Bolsonaro won. And so that really challenges people, like, I think, like people like us who are political junkies, and we read a lot about politics, and we assume that everyone is on a left-right spectrum and most people are in the middle. And if you support someone on the left, then you're going to pick the next leftmost person. No, that's just not how it works, because our media and education systems leave people horrendously ignorant about politics. So for a lot of people in Brazil, but also a lot of people in the US, a lot of people in India as well, they have a sense that the system is corrupt. And so a candidate like Bolsonaro is attractive because it's like, oh, look, he's a bomb thrower. He's someone that all the people that I hate also hate, like the liberals, the kind of educated elites, like, oh, they hate him, so I'm going to support him. You had a lot of that same dynamic with Trump. You have the exact same thing in India, too. I know a Catholic guy from India here who is basically supportive of Modi. Like, in terms of ideology, you know, you couldn't imagine something more different. But because he hates the Congress party so much, the kind of they're like the Democrats of India, like a center-right neoliberal party essentially now. Because he hates them and their corruption so much, he wants to support the people that they hate, just to shake up the system. So you do have some people that are informed about politics, and they like Trump because, you know, he's going to cut taxes on the rich. They like Bolsonaro because he's going to allow them to cut down the rainforest to build more agribusiness. They like Modi because they actually believe in Hindutva and Hindu supremacy, etc. But you also probably have a much, much larger group of people who are not thinking in these terms. They're simply thinking in the terms of, the system is horribly corrupt. I want something different. I want something to shake up the system. So in a way, that's kind of good news for us, because it means we have fertile soil to spread our ideas, but we can't do it without actually spreading ideas. We can't just assume that everyone is basically as interested about politics and as informed about us. We have to recognize that we have a huge problem of ignorance as a result of our terrible media systems and our deficient education systems. And then we have to go out there and educate people. Without that, we're really not doing anything.
Yeah, that brings us a bit to the central problem I was talking about before, and that is that what you just said, Peter, is that media ecology, you could say. Who was it just now who said it? I think it was Josanna, that people. So when you have, at least that's what I saw in many countries, including my own country, the Netherlands, is that when you see a crazy right-wing pro-capitalist bigot, the media is never, ever as harsh and rejecting as when it is a left-wing candidate. I mean, we had a socialist for the first time in like decades who became very popular in the Netherlands back, I don't know, some years ago. And this guy, the only thing he wanted was like a revival of unions, helping the working class, poor minorities, and so nothing bad. In fact, a lot of good stuff. and the media just went insane. This guy would destroy our economy and our country and everything. And it worked. It worked. He lost. He just, like, everything went down, you know what I mean? And so I think we increasingly are realizing that our media system is mostly a purely a propaganda machine for the elites, for those with power, whether it's in Brazil, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in the United States. And this is so incredibly difficult to beat. Like, we really need to start thinking about what can we do to get our message out. And that includes thinking about how can we build also a kind of leftist media network / empire that finds a way to spread the message outside the mainstream channels, such as YouTube, such as Facebook, and so forth, because that's not going to happen. Like I just said, if I go to Empire Files, if I go to the Gray Zone, if I go to even Jimmy Dore, if I go to Jimmy Dore is what you would call big on the left side. You know what I mean? But they're not allowing him to grow anymore. And still, what Jimmy Dore is, like 866,000 people or 889,000 people, that is, for us, it's big, but it's tiny in the ecosphere of YouTube. Seriously, I just accidentally went watching some. I say accidentally, but maybe I just love it. Dog and cat videos on YouTube, and there was this one like channel in Malaysia who films a monkey playing around with dogs and cats and everything, very cute. And seriously, like every single video gets like 15, 25 million views. These guys are multi-millionaires, you know, and the channel has like, I don't know, millions of people. And I'm like, I looked at this and I was like thinking, and then we have the Gray Zone with 155,000 people and 4,000 views or 10,000 views per video. We're nothing in that ecospace. Nobody hears us. We think our message get out because we keep talking to each other, you know what I mean? But nobody hears our freaking message, man. It's